And he sat me down and he looked at me and he said, "You're becoming predictable." I thought I was really creating, I was on the run of creating all the time amazing pieces. It was like, yeah, but there's a pattern in what you do now, because the expectations have grown so much. At every launch, I have 100,000 people waiting on their Instagram going, "Dude, you better amaze me." I'm like, whoa.
So, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be in Kuwait. First time in years I'm back.
Yeah, honestly, and I just told you that I'm really happy to have you in Kuwait, because we always do interview. We did, I think, in Geneva once. We did in Bahrain twice.
Yeah.
First time to have you in Kuwait it's an honor.
It's a pleasure.
So, what brings you to Kuwait then?
Actually, we're having a dinner with our tribe members. So tribe members are collectors who own MBNFs. And as we hadn't been back for years, we basically reached out and said, "Guys, do you want to have a dinner? And I'll jump on a plane and come and see you." And 9 or 10 of them said, "Yeah, let's do this." And for us, the tribe, meaning the people who've believed in us over the last 20 years, is so important. Sure. I'm always amazed at so many brands spend so much money and energy trying to find new clients instead of spending a fraction of that on those who've already given them their trust and their commitment. And we are exactly the other way around. So it was nice to be here. It's very nice to be here.
Actually, since you mentioned that, and I have a question about this, like, when I've been a fan of MBNF since I started liking watches, and I think you know that. Well, every time we sit and we talk and discuss that specifically, but I don't remember having MBNF doing like a big marketing campaigns or like, as you said, try to get new clients. I always felt there was a very special club.
It's also because we didn't have the means. I mean, the company was so small for so long that you don't have the means to do advertising. Let's not forget, we started in an era of print advertising. Remember how much cost a page of print advertising? Expensive. And so we couldn't. And then actually one of the things which makes us independent watchmakers are where we are is social media. And so I'm not sure if all of us would be where we are without social media, because it's free of charge and because it brought groups of people who loved to start following and talking to each other, and we love it because we can be ourselves. If you look at our posts on our Instagram, it's who we are, with the sense of humor we have, with the fact that we don't take ourselves too seriously, with the fact that we're very grateful. Everybody who writes something, we will of course acknowledge it. It's our way of being linked, and we're gosh, I don't know if I would be sitting in front of you today without social media. We're grateful.
Definitely. And this is honestly, even if you go back to the beginning of Timekeeper, the first manufacturer visit for me in Switzerland was Bowser, which is a very brand both of us like. And the reason was I was traveling in Geneva. I was traveling in Switzerland all over, so close to Zurich. I sent a message on Instagram to Edward saying, "Hi, I'm with my wife in Switzerland. Can I do a tour?" And he replied within like 2 hours. And this is, to me, that's okay. This is now, to get an interview with a big brand, I have to go through the directory and who's allowed to speak, who's not allowed to speak. And one of the things that you did recently and was really interested in is the podcast. Right. So what was the idea about doing the podcast for MBNF?
So the podcast where we interview some markets, it's the whole concept of the tribe. Is I have been incredibly lucky to meet some incredible human beings over the last 20 years. So when I started MBNF, I didn't know any potential client. So it's first our retail partners, of course, introduced us. And people who resonated on that wavelength of independent watchmaking, crazy watchmaking at MBNF, where there was no, at that time, oh, is it going to be worth more money? It was never going to be worth more money. You knew that if you bought one of my pieces, like all independents, you would use your shirt, but you would buy it because you loved the story, the product, the way it was made, and it meant something. And it was not only about I was going to say, it was not at all about showing off.
True.
Because if you wear this, nobody knows what it is.
Exactly.
You know, but most normal people have no idea what it is. And so you're not showing off. So I've met incredible individuals over these years. And I was thinking, I would like these people to first meet each other. That would be really great. And next, the stories they've told me, what's inspired me, I would like to share with others. And I must admit, I have so much more admiration for what you do, because it's so difficult to interview somebody. Let's say answer questions, than to do a great interview where you let somebody express themselves and then bring them another question and
remember the question you want to ask after the answer. Something.
Yeah, and you prepare stuff, but then suddenly your guest goes completely to that part, and you're like, oh, now how do I bring him or her back? And so we just tried. It's been an amazing success.
And you published, I think, 2 so far.
Well, I think we're at 6 now.
6. I heard 2 maybe. I saw the Alexander one, and I think the first one. And how do you prepare for it? Since you said, like, do you do the questions?
We work with a bit of trying to find, it's people we know.
Yeah.
And therefore, what we would like to highlight and what they've brought to the story, what interested us. And then I must admit, we organize a whole questionnaire, and then we send it to them, and it's like, is there any questions you don't want? And usually, and honestly, everybody said, no problem, whatever you want. And then I just try my best at interviewing them and making something which is, I think, interesting for everybody to hear, because we very little touch on watches. It's much more about life stories, achievements, regrets, seeing the world differently. What would I have done? What would I tell my younger self?
Yeah.
If I met myself 20 years ago, what would I tell? When people have achieved some incredible things, it's really interesting. It's truly interesting.
Nice. I will keep doing it with video. I really hope to see it in video. I think you're doing it only audio now.
We only do audio. It's
just more work.
We've been doing this all by Zoom. Because otherwise you need the people in a room, and some of the people I'm interviewing, they don't have the opportunity to jumping on planes just to go and do an interview. True.
So let's get back to the machines you did before. So you introduced the HM11, and it was with you in Dubai, right?
November 2023. Yeah.
Yes, that was the last machine you introduced. We never sat and discussed it.
Yeah.
So how was the feedback? What do you feel about it so far?
That piece is incredibly important for me, because it was born out of a discussion I had with Michael Tay, the owner of the Hourglass, in 2018, where he sat me down, and Michael's been an old friend, and he's been my retail partner. He's probably one of the smartest people in this industry. And he sat me down and he looked at me and he said, "You're becoming predictable." That was like, I couldn't breathe. I was like, what? I thought I was really creating, I was on the run of creating all the time amazing pieces. It was like, yeah, but there's a pattern in what you do now. You were really amazing a few years back, but now there's a pattern. And 1 year an LM, 1 year an HM, 1 year, your HM's always based on your childhood and all that stuff. And I was like, whoa. And good friends, they're there to keep you in check. And I really have to thank Mike, because I hated it when he told me. I was very angry. And once I digested it, I had to realize he was true. He was right. And thanks to that kick, I had the courage of coming out with Mad Edition.
Mm-hmm.
I had the courage of creating an HM which was not linked to my childhood. It's the very first HM really, which is a complete link to my more adult interests, architecture. And from there, working on something which, there was an idea, and just going through it. And it's also technically a symbol of what we've managed to achieve at MBNF. What I mean by that is that, yes, there was this incredible design with the 4 rooms. There was the idea that it was going to turn. And at the beginning of the R&D process, but we were already pretty much involved in it. At one of the meetings, I'm like, guys, okay, it's going to turn, but wouldn't it be cool if when it turns, it actually whines? And Thomas, the engineer who's been in charge from A to Z of this project, went white.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, no, it's not possible, he said, give me some time. I'll see if it's possible. And he reworked completely the project. And when you turn it, it winds the movements.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be a 42 millimeter watch, even though it's so exuberant. And he really managed, and he took that project from A to Z, movement, case, everything. He developed it internally with us. And so I'm grateful to Mike. I'm grateful to Thomas and to all the other people in the team.
But like when I think about the comment from Mike, like every horology machine to me is horology machine to me is very different than the other.
They are.
Which is
They were
really
all linked to my
difficult.
childhood.
Yes, but they're very different to anything. If you look at the watch industry, if you look at any catalog you have, they're very similar, and you can actually predict, okay, they start with a perpetual, they will do an annual, they go back to a tourbillon, they add a minute repeater. But for you, it's a very different, and every time you start from scratch, so it's much, much harder than taking a model and changing it. Very
It is.
interesting, yeah.
But what's changed a lot? When I started MBNF, I was terrified that nobody would buy one of our pieces. Rightly so. Now, soon 20 years later, 21 calibers. Next year, there are 2 more coming out. What scares me is to disappoint. Because the expectations have grown so much from our tribe and from our followers. I have this impression, and I've said it already a few times jokingly, is that at every launch, I have 100,000 people waiting on their Instagram going, dude, you better amaze me. I'm like, whoa.
That's the thing, yeah.
You create expectations. Now, if I come up with a product and I'm proud of it, I think there's a pretty good chance that most people will be amazed. And I just have to live with it. I mean, we've just seen, I don't know if you just saw the unveil of the Jaguar rebranding.
Yeah, the EV.
Gosh, have you seen the comments on social media, the destruction of all the people so angry? And at the same time, I have to give credit to, I think it's Jerry McGowan, the head of design. That was bold. But I mean, I'm thinking, what is he living now? He's been working on that for years.
Yeah, that's it.
And okay, I think it was there was a leak or whatever. And suddenly everybody's screaming, all the fans, oh, you can't do this. It's like, wow. You realize that there is an ownership of a brand which is not held by the brand itself at some point. And the brand, the more it creates, the more it generates in its fans expectations. And this Jaguar launch was, again, I'm not saying right, not right. I'm not a Jaguar owner. I'm not but it's pretty scary.
Mm. But to me, the more successful you are, to me, the easier to work, or like the feedback. So for you, during these more than 20 years, you're in the industry in general. So now you're more scared from the beginning.
We're grateful and lucky that there is a very big demand. Basically, the whole of 2025 production is pre-sold, at least on the existing collection. And the novelties you will see, and we're pretty sure that the novelties will be spoken for very easily. But I believe a creative brand, a brand which is based on creativity like we are, needs to pivot. it means if we start indeed becoming predictable, if we start getting complacent and doing things as we have always done, we will disappoint. The first people we'll disappoint is ourselves. So typically you're going to see next year something which will come out which nobody expects from us. Nobody. And God, I hope I won't have the Jaguar feedback, but it's something I wanted to try. It's something I have a basket full of ideas which I've been churning out, but which were not horological machines and not legacy machines. And so they were here and not mad editions. So we've also got, now don't forget, I have all sorts of other ideas, and I left them in that basket because it's already impossible to explain MBNF in 20 seconds. You know the famous elevator pitch? It's impossible to do that. So we create horological machines, legacy machines, but we also got management. We also create co-creations and performance art and we also do a pencil sharpener, by the way, which looks like a dinosaur. And we're like, how do you explain what we do? So what was in the basket was supposed to stay in the basket. But then in 2020, 21, when the demand went crazy, you know those brands which have success, they stopped taking risks. We were like, on the contrary, it was like Red Bull for us. It was like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Let's start doing the stuff in the basket, which has, nobody's expecting that in our world. And we'll do just, 30, 40, 50 pieces a year, just because it's cool to try. So success for us has been it's been like, we're going to take even more risks. And we'll see, but we're not going to do, again, going back to that, we're not going to change everything. Like, now we pivot and everything we did before we stop and everything will be, no. We try. I mean, creating is trying and it's failing also, or it's disappointing and it's okay, but we have to take risks.
Do you remember a failure during your career that you learned a lot from?
There have been umpteen failures if you look at it financially. There have been no failures if you look at it creatively. I have often given two examples. I think the best example is the LM101. The original, the first legacy machine was the one. The 101 came 2014, so the one was in 2011. From 2014 to 2020, that's a long time. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, so 19, 6 years. Absolute flop. Nobody wanted them. They stayed at our retailers. I still have this vivid memory of my retailers saying, look, I've had it in stock for 4 or 5 years now. Can you buy it back and sell me something else? Nobody wants this watch. We barely could sell 25 of them. They were the entry-level price.
Yeah.
They were 40 millimeters, what most people wanted. Nobody wanted. And then 2020 arrives and everybody goes bananas and starts saying, we want an LM101. And you're like, what happened? I still don't know what happened.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened. But the only reason I kept on doing that 101 was I couldn't amortize the development of that movement. So it was only, I was like, I have to continue doing variations because there is nowhere with 25, 30 of those pieces at that price every year that I can amortize such an important investment of doing a movement. And luckily, because otherwise I would have killed it before.
Yeah, because to me, 101, it's a very nice introduction to the brand and to be part of the tribe without being that crazy about horology machines, or to pull off a horology machine is not that easy.
I love my 101. It's super class, it's elegant, and it's got a twist, and it's got this incredible fly. It was basically the idea at the beginning was, how can I do the smallest, most elegant watch using this enormous 14 millimeter flying balance wheel?
Yeah.
The same which was on the one, which was 44 mm. And so that was our intellectual challenge on that one. But nobody followed us for 6 years. So we continued because we loved the product and we couldn't amortize it. There's another good example, HM5. The original car design, my first foray into a car designed watch. As you know, I wanted to be a car designer when I was a youngster. So for me, it was such an important watch. It was incredibly difficult to come to life. There were insane technical issues. We originally went to a university specialized in optical science. And we had the Amida, the original 1976 Amida.
Which is introduced,
which has just been so we're talking of 2009 because it came out in 2012, and we went with them and said, look, it's impossible to read the time on an Amida. It's very difficult. How can we make much bigger numbers and much easier to read? And these guys, after 6 months, came back and said, parabolic mirrors, not prisms. Parabolic mirrors. Oh, they showed, it can enlarge and I was like, oh, wow, amazing. Okay. So then we started developing a movement around parabolic mirrors. We tried to find somebody who could make tiny parabolic mirrors. I remember this is 15, 16 years ago. We were sending emails out. We would go onto the internet and who is manufacturing parabolic mirrors around the world. Nobody in watchmaking is doing that. And some guys would send us back messages like, your plans are wrong. It's written millimeters. You mean meters, right? Because parabolic mirrors are used in satellites. And these guys were doing like meter parabolic mirror. And we're like, no. It has to be like 3 millimeters. Like, are you crazy? And finally, we find somebody who accepts to do it. They send us, cost us a fortune. They send us the prototypes. We assemble after all the work we've worked on the movement. And the team brings me the first prototype and they're like, is it that bad? Max, you look. And you couldn't see anything. So the only way you could actually see is if it was perfect light coming in and then hitting your eye. Then it was amazing. But if you looked at it from the side, from the top, you couldn't see anything. Of course, it's optical science, but we hadn't thought of that. And so this was like, I'm going to say a year before the launch. And we had to launch in 2012 because if we didn't launch in 2012, we were dead. And we reworked everything. We went back to the drawing board with the prism mirrors of the Amida. We're trying to make it much more readable. So instead of having two discs, one next to the other, we had two very big discs, one on top of the other. But that brought another issue, is that the mirrors have to be absolutely to the surface of the discs. Then we also on the mirrors try to add a magnifying glass in the mirror. So that HM5, the sapphire block, costs an absolute fortune because it's a magnifying glass, it's a mirror with 2 steps, and it's what the water resistance is done on the case. So there's a system where you've got the water resistant gasket directly in it. It was crazy. And when it came out, the first zirconium pieces, the 66, sold. But again, we need to do more than 66 pieces at that price point. So we came out with a red gold version the year after and a black carbon macrolon the year after, and they didn't sell at all. And we didn't even do the 66 and 66, and nobody wanted them. And so then I was able to do the HMX, so that was an incredible success. HM8, that was not great. And then HM8 Mark II, which is incredible. Everybody wants one. So that first HM5 didn't sell, cost us an absolute fortune, never paid for its development. But then the other products were able to come over. At the end of the day, I love my HM5. I think, parents who have special kids, special needs kids who are in difficulty, it's said that they've got much more love for them. And HM5, it was such an ordeal to come out with. but I've got a particular place in my heart for it.
Nice.
Yeah, it lost a ton of money, but
And that's, the thing is, like, when you speak about the feedback, what people get, and when you're waiting for the feedback, a lot of people don't see all the hard work. And you mentioned Jaguar. They don't see everything that the designer did, the years of prototyping and everything. But they come and write a comment that's kind of hurtful to you, you know?
the thing is, social media is a concentrating place for people to be nasty.
True.
It's
Very true.
I think you'll have either your people who are really nice or very nasty. People in the middle who are like, yeah, okay, they're not going to mention anything.
True.
So you end up having these two polarizations. And unfortunately, I found that social media too often brings the bad side of human beings out. I remember, I don't know where it comes from, but my mum used to tell me, when you speak, what you say should be verified, useful, and kind. So verified means get your facts. Don't just, we're in a world of fake news, you know, like verified. Useful. If you're going to say something, it should be useful, make sense and help somebody else to think, not maybe something. And kind. I think we've a little bit lost that on social media, unfortunately.
True. So speaking of all of these difficulties, I want to speak about selling part of your company. Did it make you more comfortable, more risk taker, or it became more of a responsibility now?
We have to come back to the why. So I'm turning 58 now. Okay, I created the brand when I was 38. I'm going to say that the first 10 years of survival, where we nearly went bankrupt 4 times, you're not thinking of your succession plan. You're just thinking, how do I get to next year? The next 5-6 years, which were just rough and tough, still, you don't think of succession plan. And it's only 2020, 21 where success arriving, which you never expected, and you never strived or solved for that. It was never supposed to happen. All of us independents had it incredibly rough the first 20 years. And none of us expected to have waiting lists. It was not an option. So suddenly that happens. And at the same time, I start losing friends who are passing away to crise cardiaque, heart attacks, pancreatic cancer, like things gone. People are in their 50s, gone. Like, whoa. And at the same time, the success allows us to start thinking, well, now is maybe the time I can think of what happens if something happens to me. And it's true, it was amazing because synchronicity, 2022, Watches and Wonders, having a coffee with the Chanel team and owners, and because we've known them for 20 years. This folding buckle is made by Chanel for the last 20 years by Chanel for us. So we've been actually a tiny client of Chanel. And so they invited us and they asked us, like, how can we help? Which probably was a very generic question, like, how can we help?
Well,
and like, yeah. And I was like, it's interesting that you say that. We have a succession issue because my children are very young. My daughters are today 11 and 7. I have no idea if they want to integrate the company, and I will not push them. And I have no idea if they'll have talent. We have all seen so many examples of family-owned businesses where they integrated people of the family, but they probably didn't have the talent necessary. And I would not want that on my company. So it's a 20-year gamble. You don't integrate somebody when they're 20 into the company, maybe in their 30s. So that's 20 years. And I'll be nearly 80 years old. do I want to gamble the future of my company? And it's not about me. It's our responsibility as a company to our team and the clients. Do we want to gamble all of that on my two daughters who are 11 and 7 today and are completely out of not even thinking about it? No. So the discussion we had with Chanel was, if the girls want to take over and they're great, fantastic. But if they're not, if they don't want to take over, then the day something happens to me, please, you take over. And that took an enormous weight off my shoulders. I won't be there. I'm dead. It's gone. Done. Halas. But you want to think that everything you've done has been done for a reason. And you don't want that the day something happens to me, my family sells to the wrong company because they don't know how to deal with this company, like, oh, some private equity or publicly owned group. And it's not about quality. It's about what we've done. You can't have a short-term thinking. You can't be thinking next quarter you want more growth and more profit. That's not how we built what we did. And that cannot happen. So it just worked. Now, coming back to Chanel taking 25%, it hasn't changed anything in the way we work. It's maybe allowed me to think I can take even more risks because I know there is a safety net. But I was already taking such insane risks with no safety net. So I don't think it's really changed much. It's just made me feel I'm more serene. I'm much more serene than I was before. And that allows me to take a few more crazy beats.
And why Chanel? Because you're not the first independent to sell some part of the company to Chanel, right?
So it's a family-owned business, which is incredibly long-term thinking, who has never put growth as their objective. And they've always put quality and an image first. And they have helped dozens of companies you're not aware of, mostly in the world of artisanship. People who make incredible handmade gloves, people who make incredible cashmere, people who make hats still by hand like they always. And these little companies, these little artisans were going out of business. And Chanel came and said, we'll take care of you. And they've never spoken about it. They've helped two brands we know very well, who are incredible creators, Romain Gauthier and Hervé Chaud.
Yeah.
And of course, we spoke to them. And it's like, how is that working out? And both of us told us, like, they're just there to help. They don't ask for anything.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because at some point, my M&A lawyer, which I had to take one because I'd never done anything, I had no idea how to do this. So you probably should ask them, like, when do they want to own the company? Because when such a big entity invests as a minority shareholder, you probably want to buy the company at some point. So at some point in this 2.5 years of getting to know each other, we are having dinner. I was like, okay, guys, when you want 51%? They looked at me like, no, we don't want 51%. Like, really? It's like, no, we don't want 51%. You asked for our help. We're coming in to help you. But we don't want to own your company. So I said, but when I pass away, like, yeah, that's what you asked for. But only if your girls are ready to sell. Because if they want to take over, they stay in charge. Oh, wow. Okay. So
Nice.
it's a company. You have to realize that Chanel, a family-owned company, and they've given their numbers over the last couple of years, did $20 billion last year. We're not even a rounding error of the rounding error. We don't exist in the scope of things. So it's a way of being for them to help creators and people who have got a talent in artisanship.
So they asked the same question to Romain. Romain Gauthier, I asked the same. He said, nothing. He didn't feel there's any pressure from their side. He didn't feel nothing. But I have a question about collaborations. When will we see something by Chanel and Max?
It was never on the table. Because I also asked, I was like, so guys, I know what we will be gaining in this partnership. What do you want? And it was all the time that we want to help you. It was like, okay, but what do you want in exchange? They're like, no, nothing. So do you want me to create a movement for you? I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, thank you so much. No, thank you very much. Okay. Do you want me to bring some ideas? Like, oh, that's very kind of you. But no, we're okay. So something will happen if it has to happen. But it's not something they require, and it's not something they've asked for. They were like typically, so Romain worked on one of their movements, the Monsieur. If I'm not wrong,
The jumping, right?
FP Journe's dial manufacturer worked on one of the incredible dials of their this year or last year's collection, because nobody could make it, and he had the knowledge, the savoir-faire. So he stepped in and said, look, if I can help you. It happens if it has to happen. It's not perceived by both sides as a business. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Because if I look at Chanel as a watch lover, they're really, it's really difficult to compete with everyone. You know, if you go to Bulgari, they did really well with the Octo, and they're trying to push. If you look at LV and what they're doing, they're really pushing hard to do and get to collectors. Chanel, I love their watch. I love the jumping that I think Romain worked on with the marble dials, and it's a beautiful watch. And I think they have one with the black onyx. It's a beautiful watch, but it's really hard to compete in the watchmaking. So my thinking when I saw the news, okay, so if they have FP John, Romain, and Max, they can easily get three of you guys to do something and compete in this industry. But it seems like they're kind of okay.
I don't think that is why they invested us. You probably have to interview them.
Yeah.
So it's what is interesting with Chanel is we spoke about those $20 billion a year. I think that I'm going to say, again, I'm sorry if it's not exactly, I think 90 to 95% of that revenue is done with women.
Yeah.
It's a brand.
I guess so.
In the watches, which speaks mostly by far to women. And they've not, because the growth is not the mantra, they're not saying, okay, we've done all this with women, let's try and get market share with men. They don't think that way.
Yeah.
They just try and continue to create an excellence in what they're good at. And it's puzzling when you know the state of the industry from other brands, because they don't think that way. They don't think the way the others do. It's like, we speak to women, so it's fine. Which doesn't mean women don't want complicated movements. It's just that I think there's a moment where if a complicated movement made sense for a specific woman's watch, they would completely be interested. But I don't think they're trying to go and get market share of men's watches. I don't have that impression.
Yeah. So my last two questions, and I don't want to take much of your time, and I have a nice dinner with the tribe. I want to take Max out of MBNF. I know you started with JJ Lacoute, you have Harry Winston and such. The industry right now, what is your feeling? What do you see the trends is going? What brands you like? Especially independents.
Look, we've just lived 3-4 incredible years for independence. I hope that's consolidated and strengthened all my friends and people I admire in this industry, who have all, like ourselves, been struggling. And that's given a base to a certain amount of us to think of our own, all of their succession plans. I mean, if you take somebody like Kari, typically Voutilainen, now Venla, his daughter, has entered the company, which is working on Urban Jurgensen, etc., etc. And well, I'm one of the youngsters at 58. I mean, most of the guys are a little bit older than me. And I think everybody has been using these 3-4 years to consolidate so that these could continue if something happens. And I'm very, very happy about that. The other thing which I see which makes me very happy is micro brands.
Okay.
With what you call DTC, direct to customers, and social media, it's brought a whole new ecosystem of creators who can come up with something at completely different lower price points and come up with interesting products, which I think most of these brands could not exist 20 years ago when we started. And so that's given so many new opportunities which make me happy. You're wearing a colloquium.
Yeah.
Typically, that's a brand which could not have existed probably 10, 20 years ago. And so that it gives, and it's creative and it's interesting, and they're staying at a size which makes sense. I think that's could be a real game changer in creativity. But I'm using the word creativity. When micro brands copy expensive brands and just because they're made in China can get away with doing something much cheaper and ripping off intellectual property, it's not cool. That shouldn't be the point. The point of the micro brand for me is you have incredible options and opportunities. Be creative. Do things that the big brands don't dare do. The big brands don't have the courage to do, or it's not in their DNA. Go on, you've got the world is up for you, and we've shown with Mad One, and I hope in all the other Mads we've got, that you can be super creative and I'm not saying it's inexpensive, because 2,900 francs is not inexpensive, but at a price point which allows a lot of many more clients to actually access something creative.
True. One last question then. Because I wanted you to mention brands, but you don't want to mention specific brands, like from the micro brands. Like to me, it's honestly to find someone like you, checking, because I know you can go and purchase things, vintage watches, and you like micro brands a lot. Do you have something in mind from these small brands? So we mentioned these guys.
I got my colloquium. I'm very happy. I think that typically Guillaume with Space One and Théo Frère doing a great job. And the Tellurium is super cool.
I was about to wear the other one. I had the Space One and this, and I said, you know what, maybe this. Maybe he was the
Tellurium is amazing. I mean, there's all sorts of things. What have I ordered recently? I'm getting an Amida, because I of course have to get an Amida, which was the inspiration. What else have I got recently? Actually, there was this brand which just came out and discovered called Denison. Beautiful cushion shaped and real stone dials. I'm like at 600 francs. It's pretty amazing. Okay, it's a Ronda quartz, but again, the watch, when you wear it, it's a beautiful watch. And what else have I got recently? I tend to buy watches, and should have prepared. You should have told me, because I sort of wondering what else. But there are brands which are coming out which are creative, and that really makes me happy.
So the last question would be: you mentioned the plan for the next 20 years. Next year, work on something completely different. That's not within horology machines and not legacy machine, and not the arts and nothing. Something completely different.
Completely. It's not. It doesn't fit into all those categories. Next year is our 20th anniversary, and I think for that anniversary, it was important that we amaze. We amaze ourselves. We take risks. It will be about collaborations. It will be about a new product which nobody's expecting, and it will be about giving back and to say thank you to all the people who've supported us over the last 20 years. We did that already for the 10th anniversary. I don't know if you remember the HMX. We came out where we took virtually no margin. We came out at a watch at 29,000 francs, which should have been at a much higher price point. This case, we're going to come out with different initiatives to say thank you to all the people who've helped us. I think gratitude is maybe something we learn more about when we get older. But I'm probably, if there's one thing I would have liked to have more of, is to show more gratitude in the previous years. So I hope I'll show more of it from now going forward.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really hope you enjoy your short stay in Kuwait.
Definitely.
And I truly hope that we get to see a lot of and more of watchmakers to come to Kuwait. And you asked a very good question right before the interview, is that we really lack this, yet we have really good collectors. So I really hope we get more. Thank you very much.
So Ali, you know what you have to do? Kuwait Watch Week. That's your next big project. We count on you.
Inshallah. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.